Hey guys, we're back here on the bonus round with Jeff, Michael, and Mike, talking about games as always. But let's get into some of the games that came out last fall. We saw that some games didn't perform that well, especially current gen only games. Were there any software winners? I mean, to you, Jeff, were there any games that came out at the end of the year that you thought were really blew you away?
Blew me away? No.
Right.
I mean, I think that there were some solid games that I really enjoyed playing. I certainly have had a lot of fun playing Forza on my shiny new Xbox One. And I was pleasantly surprised. I know it got ripped in the media, but I had a blast playing Knack. I think Knack is a really underappreciated game. But didn't make my top of the year list. These aren't games that I think were the best of what we saw in 2013. Which traditionally you see in the fall at the end of the year, sort of the heavy hitters come out. We didn't really see that right at the end of the year. I mean, I think GTA 5 was sort of the last.
That was the big one, right?
And maybe Assassin's Creed, Black Flag, but.
Yeah. But Michael, were there any real kind of winners out of the, we know that publishers, by and large, didn't sell as much as they wanted
Since
to.
I didn't play every game, I can honestly tell you Black Flag surprised me that it was as good as it was. I really thought that franchise was tired, and I really didn't think they could improve upon 4. And I thought Black Flag was like ridiculously fun. It looked stupid to me, and it played really fun. So I literally played about 3 games in the last 2 months. So not the right guy to ask
and
about.
And sales-wise, though, I mean, was there anything that really kind of over-delivered?
Well, no. I mean, I think what's striking is Call of Duty down year over year. It's that, I mean, that's the one that, people have a habit of buying it. They play multiplayer a lot, and they held off because they're getting new consoles. So I think you're going to see a pickup in sales January through June of games like Battlefield and Call of Duty because they're available on next gen. I think they're going to attach at a super high rate, and they did in November, December.
Right, so. If people sell more and more consoles, those games are still around. Michael, was there anything that stood out to you in the holiday season?
Yeah, the big things for me were Nintendo games.
Super
Mario 3D World and Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds. Those were fantastic titles. That's what I spent the majority of my holidays playing. Fantastic games. They were both on my top 5 Game of the Year list. A couple other things that I really enjoyed that I kind of dove into were Gone Home and Rogue Legacy. Those were the, I played way more PC games than I have console games recently.
Well, let's talk a bit about that because, recently there's been lots of talk about like DayZ, and that came out on Steam. They said, we've already sold, I think, 1 million copies just in Steam Early Access, not from a traditional publisher. But I mean, is that really, it feels like there's a lot of energy there among like these indie games and smaller games that are coming out for the holidays that aren't on next-gen boxes, but are big successes without publishers.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my game of the year, #1 game of the year, best experience I had all 2013 was Rogue Legacy. I love the energy, as you say, that's happening with this early access. There's a feeling that people are supporting these projects and getting in the indie space. We saw Nidhogg come out yesterday, and I love the energy there, the stylistic approach and it's being embraced by gamers, and it does have this very PC sort of. The community feels like they want to rise and lift these games up, which is really, really fun.
I think it's just exciting to watch those games grow as you play them. You look at a game like DayZ or Rust. You see people playing those games when they're not really defined yet, and that's something that's really exciting. And I think, going back to Dark Souls, Jeff. Yeah. I think that's a game where the experience of kind of discovering, what those games are, is really appealing to people, especially with a live streaming culture. And interest in games like Minecraft, where people are willing to play games that are kind of broken, not defined, changing over time, and that's really exciting.
And you make a great point by bringing up Minecraft, because that is defining an entire generation of young gamers right now. Yeah. The kinds of experiences they have, which are rough around the edges. They're not these pristine, walled gardens of where you go in and there's you're eased into multiplayer. These people are searching lists of the right server to jump into on Minecraft, and they're young kids doing this. Yeah. And they're creating their own experiences, and they're creating their own kinds of fun. And I think that's really exciting. And it is I think we're going to see in the next 5-10 years, as these gamers come of age and sort of expect that, and that is what gaming is to them. It's going to be a really interesting kind of shift in where the market goes.
And also, you know, those are all digital download games. We're seeing both consoles now. You can download your games. Do we have Michael? Do we know like what percentage of games are being downloaded? Are a lot of people doing that on Xbox and PS4?
Units, it's really high. So I mean, units is probably 20% of games played, but dollars, it's probably 5.
Right.
I think that, you know, Jeff, you said this earlier about the kind of the battle to win between Sony and Microsoft. What's really great for gamers is that these formerly PC-only experiences, like Minecraft, and Plants vs. Zombies, are ending up on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network. And the way that gamers are embracing them, and again, it doesn't matter how many dollars, it's that they're spending their time and they're interested. There's going to be hundreds of those a year on both networks. And I think that's great. So you can now buy a console and never leave your living room, you know, download whatever you want, play whatever you want. And you know, we were talking about this offline, but you know, I think it started with Braid and Limbo, and then kind of mushroomed with Flower and, you know, and Journey and on PlayStation. And I think it's just going to get better and better. And all of us, you know, I had to talk with Rob about this before you got here. I don't consider all those things games as in game-worthy game of the year. They're more like snacks. But we don't only eat but they're great snacks. I mean, we don't only eat 3 meals a day. You know, we have snacks and we have dessert. And to me, you know, you play a long multiplayer session, you play an immersive game like Elder Scrolls, it's nice to take a break and play, you know, a bite-sized game that's really fun.
I think there's a little too, like even like Stanley Parable that came out last year on Steam, like remake of it, but like that's a couple hours. It's like it's a fun little.
They're really fun.
Fun little thing.
Yeah, they're really fun.
Yeah.
And I think that the other thing is that I think we've conditioned gamers the last 5 or 7 years that multiplayer is the way to go, and they load in their Call of Duty and they never play the single-player campaign. And most of these games are single-player games. I think these are the games that are much better versions of what we all grew up playing. I think it's good. It's like they're not retro, but they are in terms of kind of what they are. I think it's great to get back to the roots, and that's what indie gamers really do. They do so well, is they grab you, you care about where you're going, and I mean, they're fun. I have yet to play an indie game that I didn't enjoy. I mean, it's worth the $10.
I think you are kind of seeing some of those snack-sized games kind of turn into like daily sustaining games for a lot of people, though, like games like Spelunky and Don't Starve, and even not as something that's as large as Minecraft, but you know, you are seeing a lot of people, I think, just like kind of commit to a game for a real long time, like Rogue Legacy. Like I played that game every day, multiple times a day for probably 6 weeks or something like that. And you know, it seems like that there's a lot of people in that space kind of targeting those like highly replayable roguelike-like kind of games. And we're starting to see some of that hit the PlayStation 4 now, because Don't Starve just hit like this last week.
Which is great, and we saw Sony make a big emphasis on that at last E3 with having all the indie developers on stage and stuff, and I think that's great too. But I also think it overlaps a little bit, especially with these. There's a sort of aesthetic in the indie community of that challenge as art form, and we saw it recently with you know, the Awesome Games Done Quick. Those guys raised $1 million for charity, right? And this whole culture that's blossoming of watching streaming, you know, and having the PS4 in particular support Twitch in such a, all those things overlap and work together to create this, where these smaller games, you know, watching people play them, it's skill-based, challenge-based. It's a different subculture of gaming that I think is growing, and there's a lot of excitement around it.
All right, hold that thought, guys. We are going to be right back here on the bonus round.